10 candidates will clash at this first debate tonight. Now, there are some of the party's most famous names there, like Elizabeth Warren, but also lesser-known figures. Take Washington Governor Jay Inslee. The fact is, in most recent polls, 7 out of 10 Democrats say they've never heard of him. But here's the thing about debates. That could change in a few hours tonight when he takes the stage for an event where a lot of Democrats are watching. Now, his walkthrough was earlier today. You can see a clip of that, but looking a little casual. He's running as the Green candidate and hit the Trump administration on that very issue today after touring the Everglades.
Mike Pence said that we now have the cleanest air in the world, that there's nothing to worry about from pollution in fossil fuels. Wake up and smell the carbon dioxide, Mike.
And as I've mentioned in this broadcast, this is a rarity, but it's happening. Jay Inslee doing an interview right before tonight's debate, a Beat exclusive. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for bringing truth to America.
I like that. I could have you around more. So look, most candidates don't even do interviews in the few hours before. We get the benefit of this. I think it's fascinating on a number of levels. What's in your mind right now? What do you want to achieve out there tonight?
A couple things. Number one, I want the story of Florida that's been inundated with sea level rise, which is also the story of your hometown of mine in Seattle, which is climate change is ravaging my state. Forest fires have now given us the worst quality in the world. We have to make defeating the climate crisis the top priority of the United States.
So do you pivot? If you get a question about something else and that's your priority, you're just going to run right to that issue?
No, not necessarily. I'm hopeful that we will have climate change questions. But look, I've got a second story, which is a pillar of accomplishment. I'm a governor that's really succeeded. I've got the highest minimum wage. We had the greatest teacher pay increase in the United States. I've passed the very first public health option in the United States. Speeches are great. Plans are great. Accomplishments are even better. I've got a boatload of them in Washington State.
Let me press you on that. In any other cycle, some of these governors, yourself included, would be, and I don't say this in a rude way, but would be taken somehow more seriously by the elites. Now, maybe it doesn't matter because the elites are wrong all the time. But what's going on this cycle? I'm going to put up here on the sort of the average, and these change. We've got a whole point about how this doesn't matter much, but you see Biden and Bernie Sanders as more well-known names polling higher, and you, Tulsi Gabbard, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, all around that 1 or 2 point mark. Is that just because people are so hungry for folks who haven't been in government?
I think what it is principally is the centralization of the news industry. Basically, people are now watching Washington, D.C., not where the real progress is, which is Washington State.
I think what you're saying is, I see your problem, and it's your fault.
Yeah, but you're doing a great job at it.
No, but I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, you're here on this show. We take people from up and down. We don't discriminate based on the polling ourselves. But the DNC, did kick out other governors.
Correct.
Do you think they should be on the stage?
I think Steve Bullock should have been on the stage.
Yeah.
But here's what I believe. This is what campaigns are for. Look, I'm an underdog. I've always been an underdog, and I've beat a lot of Republicans being an underdog. But I'm where Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter were about this stage.
Right.
This is about introducing yourself. Look, 7 out of 10 Americans never heard my name. But tonight, when they hear a person who's going to prioritize climate change, who has had one of the most spectacular progressive records in the United States. I'm the guy who stood up to Donald Trump on the Muslim ban. I'm the guy who sued him successfully 22 times. I'm the guy that's got the first long-term elder care program and the first net neutrality law in the United States. So I'm happy to share that information with people.
Let me ask you something else. When you first heard that news alert, or however you heard it, Bob Mueller's back. Bob Mueller's going to come and testify publicly, which he's literally never done since he became special counsel. For your campaign, did you think, I don't care, old news? Did you think that's good as an accountability moment? Or did you think, and be honest, gosh, these House Democrats are stepping on our debate. You want to talk about green jobs in the future. Is that backward looking? What was your honest reaction?
My reaction is Congress should do its job. It should have a full inquiry from whatever source, from any witness who has information. I do believe that the impeachment issue has now virtually become inevitable.
Meaning?
It's time to start an impeachment inquiry, in my view.
And when you say inevitable, you mean Pelosi and the Democrats will come around to having an impeachment?
I don't know. This president has left us no choice. He violates the Constitution every time he turns around. He lies to the American people on things big and small. There are many things he's lied about, but the fact that the other day he went out and told us that the air is clean and climate change is not a problem, There's a lot of lies that are destructive. That
So
is one of them.
you say it's inevitable. When you hear Joe Biden say, he needs more time, is he wrong on that, or you get where he's coming from?
I'll let everybody be a judge, but I've just had a belly full. The Constitution is in doubt. We have to show America to get to the bottom of what can happen, and I think having an impeachment inquiry can help that actually occur.
Now, we've done a lightning round before. Can you handle doing it right here, face-to-face in Miami?
I don't know. You know all my secrets. That might be tough.
In a sentence or less, Jay Inslee wins tonight's debate if?
People understand I am the candidate, the only candidate who will say this has to be the top priority of the United States, which is defeating the climate crisis.
Of these top 20 Dems, the one most likely to be on a Jay Inslee ticket, if there were one, is?
Can't say, but it's not going to be two white fellas at the top of the ticket. I will tell you that.
If you were the nominee, you're saying your running mate will not look like you.
We need diversity at the top of the ticket. I really
and that's a standard. You're saying you're running on that.
Yes. Now, obviously, we're going to find a person who's qualified.
Sure.
There's a lot of quality in this field. I've already identified maybe 8 or 9 that are qualified to be vice president, as a matter of fact. So I'll test them out tonight.
The most important issue tonight is?
Well, I view identifying someone who can beat Donald Trump, and I believe I have the best way to do that, which is economic growth with the #1 fastest growing job in America, which is clean energy.
And finally, when you see Cory Booker crushing those barbells, that video's going viral today, you think what?
I think Cory's quite a great football player, but I'll be doing okay in the debate stage.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.